Mr. Begley, members of the board, we do have several items for board discussion this evening. Our first item is certainly one worth celebrating, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Aug.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley, members of the board, I am very excited to take a moment tonight to honor North Elementary for earning the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce Momentum Award. This award recognizes schools that improved their performance index by 3 or more points from the 22-23 to the 23-24 report card and received a value-added progress rating of 4 or more stars. The letter from ODU stated that, quote, "This notable accomplishment celebrates those who consistently give their all to creating a supportive learning environment that fosters growth, collaboration, and success." So we want to say well done and congratulations to the staff and students of North Elementary. This is certainly something to celebrate.
Let's give them a hand. And pass along our thanks to Mrs. Hayes and staff.
Absolutely.
All right, our next item for board discussion is in regard to an update on the biennium budget and its potential impact on the Fairfield City School District. This time, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I just wanted to update you quickly on the governor's proposal for the biennium budget. And I know we have some articles and different things going out about this topic as well. But in short, the governor's proposal is going to freeze base costs. So the building block, the fundamental thing that they say this is how much it should cost to fund a public education. They're freezing that to the levels it was in 2022, which that's somewhat unprecedented. I mean, they don't guarantee that they're going to increase base costs, but they have every biennium budget. They've increased base costs to reflect inflation. The governor's proposal will freeze that at 22 levels, regardless of the fact that we've had extreme inflation in the last 3 years. In addition to that, they are taking your local wealth, so your new property values, your new income tax, to determine how wealthy your community is for your fair share, to 2024 levels. So they're going to take the base cost, freeze it. They're going to say you can afford to pay 2024 levels, so the state has to pay a lot less, right? So the total's less, you are wealthier, so our share just went down, shifting the cost of public education to the local communities. What that does to Fairfield in particular is, if you remember when we presented the 5-year forecast in November, we were going to be a partially guarantee-funded district way out in 2029. We now are going to be a guarantee district in 2027. So 2 full years sooner, we will be guaranteed. The guarantee is you will get the same, so the state says as a safety net, you will get the same amount of funding that you received from the state in 2020. So we're freezing base costs at 2022. We'll guarantee you all the way back to 2020 levels of funding. But now in the governor's bill, they're saying, but we're not going to do that anymore either. We're only going to give you 95% of that guarantee in the first year of the biennium and 90% of that guarantee in the second year of the biennium. So I have a little graphic up there. I know it's hard to see, so I apologize. But it shows you kind of what happens to our cash balance from the November forecast and if the governor's budget becomes law. The orange line is cash that we showed in November. The dark line is 0. The blue line is how quickly we spend down our cash reserves under the governor's budget. So in short, their funding share goes down, our funding share goes up, and we are going to lose, in essence, I need to read these numbers, somewhere around $14 million over the course of the forecast. So that's the swing in our ending cash balance. And instead of deficit spending in 2029, we are now going to be deficit spending, 0, negative cash. We will be negative cash in 2027. So 2 years quicker. So make some sense. I know it's not good news, so I apologize. After good news, I get to deliver kind of the rainy cloud.
And if I could just make a comment, I have had the opportunity to speak to a number of different groups in the last week or so, and I just would encourage the board, community members, anyone who is an advocate for public education to educate yourself on this budget bill. And if there was ever a time, if you are an advocate for public ed, I would encourage those individuals to reach out to their state representatives in the state of Ohio and just encourage them, just encourage people to let their voices be heard. One of the biggest statistics that I see over and over again is that approximately 80% of students, school-age children in the state of Ohio, attend public schools. So that is an overwhelming majority. But some way, somehow, this new budget bill, as proposed, eliminates around approximately $100 million from public ed in the next 2 years. And that's hard to fathom, given the fact that 80% of the kids do attend public schools. So just again, there are a lot of information out there. I would encourage people to do their own research, and please take the time to advocate on behalf of all public schools in the state of Ohio.
Building on what you said right there, so the state spent almost $1 billion in Ed Choice. Are there any conversations about lowering that amount of money moving forward?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of either, because you're right, there are a lot of articles and a lot of news stories about funding, and that has been conspicuously absent in all of them.
That continues to increase. Again, I encourage people to do their own research. It's out there. Spending on public schools is reduced, on public education is reduced. Spending on private education is increasing. And again, I encourage people to do their own research. It's out there. The information is available. Just have to take the time to find it. It's there.
Ms. Lee, thank you for as much layman as it can be to explain. It's never easy. So many line items, so much moving, or not really moving, but so many line items. And Mr. Smith, I concur with, write your state representative, speak your mind, the power in a pen. We all learned in school. That's where it starts, and it can continue there. If you're a fan and wanting public schools to be funded. And you're right, it's been silence on the other piece, total silence. So whatever's going on seems a little odd, but speak your voice, write to your representative. That's really the most we can do right now. And then educate yourself, right? There is so much information out there. Try to decipher some of that, but ask questions.
I encourage people to ask their representatives specifically where they stand on public education issues, and maybe ask them how they voted in the past, how they intend to vote in the future on those specific items. I think that's a good starting point.
So Ms. Lee, from what you were saying, where we were, the forecast that you last brought us was 2029. Now it's going to be more of a push forward to 2027.
For negative cash?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So if this doesn't change, and there's lots of moving parts, like you said, they could change part of it, they could change a lot of it. Right now, our estimated state funding for this year is $37 million. In 2028, it's $30 million, which is basically the guarantee. So you're going to be all the way back to 90% of what you got in 2020 as a district. So that's $7 million in 1 year. Difference, decrease in state funding.
Meanwhile, cost and everything else goes up.
Correct. Right. So their costs stay the same, our costs went way up. But the other side of that is if this doesn't change, when you see your November 5-year forecast, you're going to have deficit spending. You're going to have deficit cash within the window to trigger fiscal watch and caution. So you just need to be aware, that's just this gets implemented, we don't change anything else, that's what November will look like.
Thanks for the facts.
When do they vote on this, or
They have to have a budget in place by June 30th.
June 30th?
By law.
okay? And will it affect it getting a new governor in November?
No, because it's a biennium budget, so they can always change, I'm assuming they can institute bills to change spending levels, but they'd have to get through the House and the Senate. So just a governor's probably not going to make that change on his own.
But the other people in the House and Senate, some of those seats will be up in November. So that's what we need to remember, who they are and what they voted for.
Right.
So we're encouraging people to reach out to the representatives, so reach out to their state and House representatives.
Senate and House, yes.
That's what I meant, Senate and House, yeah.
I wish I had Mandy news for you, but I don't.
Mandy.
Thank you so much. We never enjoy bad news, but we appreciate the bad news, because without having the forefront information, we can't make the decisions we need to make. So we appreciate it. I applaud you, and I still appreciate and enjoy your company, even if it's not with great news.
All right, our next item for board discussion is in regard to a performance contract. This time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hustle, Mrs. Lee.
I'm going first. It was Mr. Hustle, then Mrs. Lee, so you took me by surprise.
What in alphabetical order?
So we are recommending for the next board meeting to bring a performance contract for Ashley Dare, who we just introduced. Sue is leaving us for retirement purposes, and her days for the 228 days, she's going to have some time off at the end of the year. We're going to need Ashley to fill in to be the payroll administrator while she's off. So we're asking for a performance contract for the time mid-May to July 1st, when she officially takes that position, but we'll be filling in that capacity, in that role, so.
Well said. Any questions on that?
So, when is Sue scheduled to leave? Is there going to be any kind of overlap for training? I'm sorry, the other one's? Ashley. I was going to say April. I don't know why. Is Ashley already versed on the role and will be able to just step immediately in, or are we going to have to train in May when she steps into that role?
So we are starting to do some of that training as things come up. So Ashley is currently doing this, but that's the other part of the performance contract, is to get some extra just training days where she's not doing her regular job. She's actually going to be doing Sue's job with Sue there to help make sure it's all going smoothly and we have a smooth transition. And then with Ashley being hired today, we will post and fill, hopefully, her job in the next few weeks as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it's a blessing that they're able to shadow, she's able to shadow and pick up on some of that.
Yeah.
All right, our next item for discussion is in regard to some board policies. This time, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Begley and members of the board, I have two pieces of policy for discussion with you tonight. The first is policy IGBAA, Special Education Model Policies and Procedures. Our Director of Special Services, the wonderful Jen Skirvin over here, she emailed you some information about that and is here tonight if you have any questions in regards to it. But big picture, the 2009 Special Education Model Policies and Procedures is now outdated, and it does not align with the current operating standards for the education of children with disabilities. So in order to ensure that we are complying with IDEA, the Ohio Administrative Code, and state law, all very important things to comply with, it's necessary for the board to adopt the latest version that's been approved by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And then the second policy that I wanted to discuss with you tonight is policy BDDH, public participation at board meetings. The main revision here is to simply change from the 5 minutes to 3 minutes of public participation time per person at a board meeting. And by making this revision, we will just be more consistent with OSBA recommendations in other local school districts. So pending any questions or comments that you have in regards to those, both of these policies will be on the next board agenda for board action to approve. Any questions for Jen?
Only comment is, like we normally say, thank you for digging in and revising and keeping us current. Sometimes it's a lot of work. So thank you for that.
Of course.
All right.